Thank you. Thank you. Welcome everyone to the International Charter for Compassion's Education Network Forum. I'm Charles Barker. I'm a board member of the Board of Trustees, and it's my pleasure to be the moderator for today's presentation. We are excited to have Dr. Sterida Ansari with us to talk about an exciting program, the new 3 R's. But before I introduce her in more detail, traditionally, the EdNet Forum always has 3 minutes of silent meditation prior to the presentation. So it gives us a chance to just calm our bodies and minds, and allows us to, all of that's going on in our brain, to settle down and prepare ourselves for what should be an exciting presentation. So with the sound of the bell, let's go into 3 minutes of silent meditation. I would invite you to take a relaxed and upright position. Perhaps focus on your normal breathing for just a few seconds, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in life-giving oxygen, breathing out life-giving carbon dioxide for our plants, and simply focus on that part of your body that's pleasant. And for the next 3 minutes, let's just be in silent meditation. And now I would invite you to simply return to your breath, breathing in and breathing out. And at the sound of the bell, we can return to the forum. Thank you all. Thank you all. So, Dr. Sterida Boyce Ansari is a scholar and an author whose expertise is the economics of discrimination and education inequity. Her work has been recognized by the Kellogg Foundation, the Association of Black Women in Higher Education, the American Association for Higher Education, and the American Association of University Women, and the Ford Foundation. In 2017, Dr. Ansari founded the new 3 R's, teaching Black history, responsive philosophy, and critical race theory. The new 3 R's build relationships and a sense of responsibility through the art of social justice storytelling. And Dr. Ansari welcomes you to join her in creating a more perfect union. So we want to see how we're supposed to do that, Dr. Ansari. So I'm going to turn things over to you.
Good morning, and thank you for inviting the new 3 R's and our team of experts in the area of either education and equity, racial justice, or responsive philanthropy. But I'm going to start this with Sune. Sune is a graduate of the class of 2021, one of our students. And the work that we do is for the next generation. We cannot pass on to them a racially inequitable world, because that's where we are and that's where we have been. So Sune, I pass it to you.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Just a quick introduction. My name is Sune, and I'm a student of the 3 R's, as Dr. Quiotis just said. I spent most of my childhood in India, where I was brought up on the ideals of compassion, empathy, and kindness. It is these inner principles that have paved my way to where I currently am at the Bronx High School of Science in New York City, which is one of the top high schools, where as a rising sophomore, I'm surrounded by a diverse group of students and educators that empower my inner desire to leave a truly unique impact on the world. My Indian culture has taught me to put others above myself and be selfless. My American principles that I've learned over the last 6 years of being here have taught me to never rest until change is achieved. The combination of these two ideals is exactly why I love the 3 R's. I feel it is a safe space to voice my opinions and have discussions with like-minded people, which has helped me become more considerate, addressing topics that I was not previously informed about. It is the work that they do tirelessly that makes me realize that change is truly possible. And now I could not be more excited to have the opportunity to not only make a direct impact on the pursuit of American equality by being part of the new 3 R's grant-making committee, but also on the empowerment of Black-led organizations across the globe in order to move one step closer to a world where everyone is committed to living by the principle of compassion. Thank you for listening to my story, and I now pass it on to Dr. Sarita to tell you a little bit more about the organization.
Thank you. When we started the new 3 R's, we were thinking only about racial injustice in the United States until I met Sune. And he told me that we should be a global organization because racism, unfortunately, is a global pandemic. So that gives you a little bit of who I am in terms of my ability to listen to all people, regardless of their race, faith, gender, or income and age. So I'm a Black woman married to a Black man raising a Black son who at the age of 6 became America's youngest philanthropist because we instilled the values of him of taking care of others. My partner and I, like majority of families who subscribe to the values, we don't subscribe to the values of competition. We still believe in civics and compassion and community engagement. I always wanted to be a mom of a Black boy because Black men have it so darn hard, whether it's in the United States or the United Kingdom. My grandfather founded the first Black credit union in Brooklyn. My father-in-law was badly beaten by the Ku Klux Klan, but a corporate executive stopped the lynching because my mother-in-law's grandmother was the property of a white man's family back into slavery. So they didn't lynch my father-in-law, but instead they lynched his cousin. And his name is Elbert Williams. Elbert Williams is the first NAACP officer to die fighting for my right and every Black person's right to vote. They took my in-laws' property, gas station, and excommunicated them from the state of Tennessee. And that was a hard economic impact on the family. Again, who am I? I'm a scholar, but I'm a scholar in the field of racial inequity. And my work has been recognized by Bill Clinton. Barbara Bush was very supportive of a national literacy program I designed for those who have been incarcerated. And Joy Webb and Joy Webb teaches the students, the 6th and 10th graders, how to be responsible philanthropists. We are both known internationally as top 10 Black female philanthropists committed to improving Black lives around the world. And most recently, I've been recognized by NASDAQ for the innovation of the new 3 Rs. So, racism, we're here today with the Charter of Compassion because racism is a global crisis and it's far larger than George Floyd. And, the countries that were there protesting, they're no longer protesting and nothing has changed. And the reason why it's a global pandemic, racism, is because countries around the globe have stolen human and natural resources from the continent of Africa to build their wealth. And nothing has changed in terms of the perception that people have of Black people. But just the other day, a Nigerian guy was murdered in Italy, literally 3 days ago. And people stood by and watched him be beaten with his own cane by a white man. And on the global stage, we have Poland, right? Denying Black medical students safety. And Danny Gore can tell you story after story from country to country, but he also teaches the contributions Blacks have given the world. And that's why our tagline is "Your story is our story." But most importantly, these countries have what they have because of the blood and brains of Black people. We cannot deny that Black history is global history. And so the new 3 Rs is committed to creating a civic and compassionate society around the world. And I want to tell you why around the world. I'm going to give you a quick story. Our son went to a Montessori school. That's an international school. And when I went to pick him up, and he was 7 years old, he had been there since pre-K, one of the few Black children, not in the class, but in the building. I was outside talking with a mom, and her son joyfully ran up to me and asked if I were another child's nanny. And she was embarrassed and enraged and grabbed him. And I said to her, it's not his fault. It's the stories that you are not teaching him at your kitchen table. See, if we taught Black history, if we taught and had conversations about racial injustices and the contributions that Black people have given the world, children would not enter school with negative perceptions of Black people. And the American Psychological Association and American Pediatric Association, they say by age 3, negative perceptions of Black people are already formed in the minds of children. So I've known Karen Armstrong from my days working at the American Bible Society. That's the opportunity for me personally to work with the Charter of Compassion and for us to come together to create a more compassionate society for Black people around the world is a calling that all of us on this call have in our hearts and in our souls. And I want to explain to you how we do it, our curriculum. Historian Danny Gore has, now listen carefully, I didn't say 10, and I'm not going to say 100, and I'm not going to say 1,000. He has 10,000 Black history artifacts. 10,000 Black history artifacts. And they are the foundation of our curriculum for our online program. They're also the foundation for our animation program for the pre-K to 5, which Dr. Demetria Thomas is working on, and for our Black History newsletter, which is free, which I encourage you to subscribe to it. And Sherry Young, who is also on our team but can't be with us today, she teaches the mindfulness through our book club. And we also use mindfulness to analyze lyrics and poetry and what is the message there. Dr. Howard Leifman helps families who are enrolled in our program. He works with the adults, the parents, to help them understand racism is systemic and empower the parents to invest in how they can join us in creating a more perfect union. Joy Webb leads our giving circle. But beyond Joy Webb leading our giving circle, she's a guru, she's an expert. People around the United States go to Joy. And not only around the States, now people are tapping her internationally in terms of how can I pull my time, talent, and treasures together to really make this world a better place. And you will hear from our team. You will hear from the work that we all do from Dr. Thomas, Dr. Howard Leifman, everyone. We all have a common value in terms of civics and compassion. But we're going to start off with you hearing from Jacqueline Toppin and the research that she has done. Jacqueline?
Thank you. Meredith, are you ready to start the presentation? Presentation.
We can't really hear you, Jacqueline.
Is it better?
We can't hear you.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if Jacqueline could maybe call in on the phone and we could understand her.
I can't hear you. Hi. Okay, Charlie. Charlie, you were saying something?
Yes, I'm sorry. Say again.
I think it would be a good idea, Starita, if you could ask Jacqueline to phone in.
Yeah.
But she should also get out of Zoom because we would still get that same kind of static.
Right.
Okay.
And maybe while you're doing that, maybe I don't know.
Well, we'll go on to our next person, which is Danny Gore.
Okay, sounds great.
You're on mute, Danny.
He's working on it. I can see.
Yeah. There we go.
Hi, my name is Danny Gore, and I am the historian for the new 3Rs. And I was asked to give a couple of brief history stories today, so I'm going to jump right in because I know my time is limited. I'm going to start by sharing with you a story of Black Lucius Quiotis. Black Lucius Quiotis was the highest type Roman field officer. Now, modern writers have minimized his greatness because of his close association with Roman Emperor Hadrian, who was born in 1117 to 138. Some said he came to the Roman army from Spain. And this was no great wonder because Black Carthaginians had been in Spain since before the birth of Christ by 2.5 centuries. Lucius Quiotis, you have to forgive me for this. I'm not very fluid in Roman names, so bear with me. He was indeed a friend of Emperor Hadrian, with whom he had seen military duty in Dacia. This area is now known as Transylvania and Romania. He was an able soldier from the ground up, an expert with the deadly double-edged Roman sword, the lance, and the shield. His superior intelligence attracted ranking officers all the way up to Emperor Hadrian. Lucius had been a loyal subject to Hadrian, which was key support to any emperor when exercised by an influential ranking soldier. The emperor himself had seen hard military duty in Jerusalem. He was sent by the preceding emperor. Trajan was the emperor. He was sent there to suppress an uprising in Palestine. And it was severe repression, historians will admit. It was a Roman action, and it was expected. The Romans had followed the career of Black Lucius Quiotis carefully. He had weighed his total capabilities as a soldier, field officer, and administrator. It is said that he recalled his own stressful experience in Palestine against Bar Kokhba and his insurrectionists. Lucius Quiotis was on the cutting edge of significant history. He was sent to Jerusalem. Hadrian had ordered it. Titus Vespasianus had attacked Jerusalem in a campaign from 79 AD to 81. Now, in 139 AD, Black Lucius would go. His legions marched into Palestine with banners flying and arms at the ready. As Hadrian had done, Lucius Quiotis repeated. He improved on the past. His military feats were adequate. His civilian administration was sufficient. And Hadrian was pleased. Soon, Lucius Quiotis, Black Roman general from Spain, was made Roman governor general of all Judea. Unmatched historians like Charles B. Coper of Atlanta University intimate that the Jewish scholars have made their displeasure of Lucius known in their writings of history, literature, and even the Holy Bible. My name again is Danny Gore, and I am the historian for the new 3Rs. This has been a brief introduction to Black Lucius. Are there any questions that I might be able to answer? Well, like I said, my time is short, so I'm going to pass it on to the next.
They can ask questions. If there's
Okay,
questions, they can
fine.
ask questions.
Okay, all right.
I think I would just make a comment about storytelling. I mean, what you told us is a wonderful story, and I guess the question that I would have is the healing power of storytelling. And could you maybe give us an impression of you as a historian as you read these stories, learn these stories, and tell these stories? What kind of impact do you think it has with regard to relationships and responsibility?
Well, I don't know much about relationships, but I know that as I've learned, when you know better, you do better. And this for me was initially began because I wanted to target the African-American community, because growing up, we learn about Roman history, we learn about Greek history, we learn about histories from all over the world, but we never have anything taught to us about our own histories. I had a friend one time that was from Jamaica, and he said, you know, in Jamaica, we learn our own history, but in this country, you Black Americans don't have a history, and if you do, you don't know it. And I learned this in elementary school, beginning in elementary school, about our history and culture. And when I heard that, I made up in my mind that that would never happen again on my watch. So I started interviewing some of the local kids in the neighborhood, and a lot of them didn't even know who Martin Luther King was. So that bonded relationships with some people. Some people, you know, want to know, and this is the Black community, that, well, what does history have to do with me? They'll teach. I said, well, you're going to have kids one day. You know, maybe you want to teach them. And they said, well, you know, their teachers will do that. I said, but they didn't teach you anything. You didn't learn anything. So what makes you think things are going to change? So I took it upon myself to, every place I go, it's like being a reformed smoker or a reformed alcoholic. And there's a quote that says, I said I wasn't going to tell anybody, but I couldn't keep it to myself. So that's the way I feel about it. So I'm telling my story and our stories every place I get a chance to, and every place that I'm invited.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
I think Sune can chime in on that in terms of how it has impacted his life. And when we go into breakout rooms, the conversations that we have, the work that we do. If you look on our website and you see the youth blogs, you can see the impact of Your Story is Our Story, because our curriculum is also critical race theory. So we not only teach the contributions that Blacks have given the world and also the bloodstained truth about the Black Holocaust, we help the students understand that, you know, racism is systemic, it's in education, it's in healthcare, it's in everything. So I'm going to ask Sune, if he wants to, talk about the impact of coming together in community with a diverse group of students to have a conversation that's not being had in homes and it's not being had in the classroom. Go ahead, Sune.
Absolutely. I think it's one of the more powerful things, education, in our society. And, you know, as much as I feel that I'm in a progressive state, I live in New York, as much as I feel that my parents do teach me a lot of history, I know I'm fully aware of the fact that there are being things hidden from me in my schools, even conversations that we're not having at home, because quite frankly, just like Dr. Sarita said, it's uncomfortable. It's hard to look at yourself and reflect and realize that you have an unconscious bias within you. And you don't want to kind of wrong yourself in that sense. However, being able to have conversations with Mr. Danny Gore and being able to learn and educate yourself and educate others gives you the opportunity to open some doors, not only into parts of history that you never knew before, but also into avenues that can help us not only better understand the world around us and what went into it, but also better understand ourselves and our place in society. So I think it truly is something that is very powerful, being able to have conversations with young people, like-minded people, and diverse people just like yourself, because you really get to learn a lot more about yourself in that sense, in that way as well.
Thank you. And I'll pass it on to Dr. Leifman, who may want to continue that conversation in his presentation.
Thank you so much, Starita. Hi, guests. Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Howard Leifman. I'm a corporate psychologist and also an instructor and consultant for the 3 Rs. And as Starita shared with all of you, my role is really to work with the families as a whole, helping them to see the integration, if you will, of the importance of the work that we're doing and the importance of what's happening in the world together. As a human behavior specialist, I work with corporations and organizations, both large and small, to be able to make change in the workplace. And that does translate into the educational space. So part of what I do to help the 3 Rs is to work with them to understand what they can actually do concretely that's going to make a difference. In the classes that I work with, I'm working with the parents to say, you know, what can you be doing to help your children? What are some of the things that your children are coming home and telling you that you now can do something about? Because oftentimes the parents themselves feel frustrated that what their children are learning, they don't know what to do with, or they don't know how to take that knowledge and make something come of it. And that's where Joy works with our group to really help them to say, okay, what can you concretely do? What are some of the things that you can do that old expression of putting your money where your mouth is, having these young people create the different ways of doing something positive. I've had the pleasure of working with Starita for over 15 years, and she has been a wonderful leader and a fantastic founder of this organization. And so it's a pleasure and an honor to be able to work with her on this program. So we want to thank you for having us here today and allowing us to share a little bit about what we're doing and hopefully then how you might be interested in working with us. So with that, I will turn it back over to Starita, and I'm happy to answer any questions as well.
No questions?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
there's a-
Oh, yes, Ms. Bell,
Yeah.
or Ms. Ball, sorry, excuse me.
Hi, actually, I do have a question. Our economic system in the United States has, is deeply tied into the fact that we have systemic racism. So when you're talking about, what can the parents do, so to speak, with this information that's coming home, is there talk in terms of how they can create alternative economic systems like cooperatives, or how they might, I don't like the word fight against, but somehow impede the fact that we have an economic system that privileges white men and penalizes persons of color.
So let me
Absolutely.
answer that.
Oh,
Hold on, let me
Go
answer
ahead.
that first. We're a family program, so the children don't go home. Someone from that household, whether it's a grandfather or a mother or an aunt, must be registered, because that's the only way this is going to work. It's as much as a responsibility of the adult as it is, of the children. So that part I want to say. In terms of economics, and Joy Webb will turn to that. That's what, so we don't teach philanthropy. We teach responsive philanthropy, which is different. Responsive philanthropy is deliberately getting at what you're talking about. It is intentionally directing your time, talent, and treasures to address racism. So if a parent wants to donate stock to the new 3Rs Giving Circle, the children are going to be awarding grants, not to just a Black-led organization, but they're going to be awarding, and they do, grants to Black-led organizations that are doing exactly what you just said, addressing systemic racism. So we're not going to award a grant to a Black-founded organization that does sports, unless in the sports, that is 30% of the mission, and 70% is looking at health disparities on the continent of Africa, health disparities in the United States. And so we teach them that race does matter. We teach them there's a correlation between healthcare and racism. The greatest the greatest story would be, the tennis player Williams. She was buzzing and buzzing and buzzing because her leg was in pain. No one paid attention to her. So she started rubbing her thigh. So she had a clot in her leg. She could have died. It didn't make a difference how much money she has. It doesn't make a difference that she's a celebrity. What do people see? They see that you're Black. And heavens to Betsy, Black women catch more isms because of their gender and their race. So that's that, that's where we are. And Howard can tell you, I don't know how much he wants to share with you, but he can tell you how hard this work is to do in the workplace and getting people the adults to understand. So Howard, talk about adults.
Thank you, sir, Starita. Yes, it's one thing to try and to help children change, it is so much more difficult to try and help adults to change because we have so many more years of having done it a certain way and unfortunately thinking we're right. And so, that expression of out of the mouths of babes, so often it is the young people in the class with their parents or grandparents or aunts or uncles, whoever that adult is, are the ones that will share things that all the adults have to then stop and look at each other and are somewhat aghast because it's, wow, what that youth just said is so powerful. And how can we as adults not acknowledge it, not either accept it, or at least say, wow, you've made me think. And so that's the type of work that we're trying to do. And then sometimes taking the parents into a separate room and hearing them talk about some of the difficulty and some of the fears and some of the frustrations. They may want their youth to be this very positive, forward-thinking person, but they're also fearful of how will that work with the rest of their friends and other families. And we talk about how do you acknowledge and how do you stand up to be that bystander who doesn't allow the racism to occur. So it's not easy work, but it's work that we all really believe in. And my attitude is every person that you can help make one slight move, that movement then carries on. So thank you for your question.
I want to say one more thing before we move on. And there was a session that Howard had done, and he was texting me because it was a very difficult session. And one of the parents felt that she had failed her child because she never took the time to explain her privilege to her. We're talking about a parent. So the reason why we're online, because not only do we have people of different race and faith, we also have people in terms of different economic status, okay? And Danny told a story, I don't remember what the story was, but this woman lives near Bloomingdale's and on the Upper East Side. And it really hit home for her to understand her intergenerational wealth and where it came. And that was a very, very rough session for her. And Howard really, spent a lot of time helping that particular mom not feel guilty. So the benefits of having Dr. Leifman with us is we know that Gen Z and Gen Alpha are further along in their lens of racial justice than we are. And so Dr. Leifman, when people get stuck and they don't want to talk to anyone about how they feel, Dr. Leifman has been a resource to help people like how you just talked about, who have extreme privilege beyond their skin to stay in the class and do the work and not bail out from guilt.
Let me interject. If you have a question, please use the icon at the bottom to raise your hand, and then we'll be. And Marilyn, you have something that you want to say?
No, I'm just wondering if it would be helpful, Starita, if you would give an overview of the program, because I'm not sure that everyone here has visited the website and knows about, how you go about your work. I think your mic's off again.
I thought I did in the beginning, but I'll give it again.
Yeah, I think so.
But I want to do that at the end because I want to move on. And Dr. Thomas, can you, because if you hear everybody, you see what each person does. Each person's a program person. Dr. Thomas?
Yes, I'm sorry. What, to just say what I do?
For the new 3Rs, yes, go ahead. And your work, what you do as a professional.
So I am a teacher. I have my doctorate in education, teaching as a specialty teacher education. And I am focused on the elementary school level. As a teacher, I've been with the Department of Education for this will be my 23rd year. However, my background is in biology. My first degree is in biology, and so I have been, of course, involved in uh, children development really for a long time. Uh, the one thing that we know is that it's important for student development to happen early, because as we know, those are the foundational years that build concepts and perceptions. And students learn by connecting their knowledge with knowledge of concepts that they already know. And so it's important that it's embedded inside of a classroom environment, which is what we're seeking to do to get this more broadly into classrooms, because the type of history that's being taught is very limited, if at all any, beyond that which is in the regular published books that are basal readers to every school. And even there, you're talking about just small increments when it comes to Black history. And you see that when you get, especially we were talking the other day about, there's a paradigm shift in the learning and in how the kids start to develop in their mind just at the age of second to third grade. And you're talking about that's ages like 8 and 9. They've already started to develop exactly what they think is it, because at this point they have already been embedded, like we said, with the knowledge that they've been fed at home, which could be limited, especially if we're talking about children who are coming from backgrounds where we're talking about the economic equities. And of course, there are so many inequities, especially in the public school system. It can be varied from a child that's living in a shelter to a child that's living in a mansion, because public education is free. And so, but you have those children who are starting to then, and I know you all have experienced it, where they start to, talk about this person, point out things about that person. And this is why it's so important that at a very young age that they start to develop a sense of responsibility and a sense of awareness of especially the impact of Black Americans and the history of Black Americans in this country, so that they start to develop a better person. And so in this way, we have created that compassion that we're talking about, that compassion here. And so my job here is to look at how we can take all those 10,000 artifacts that Danny has acquired, along with the work on animation, because we know that's a big piece. Just letting kids get into, the digital, that's how they connect, that's how they learn. More visually, as people, we learn better, and to see how we can package that in a way that kids can start to really better understand things which may seem abstract, but they get a better understanding of it. So that's who we're here to, that's what I'm here to try to help do.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Thomas. Joy?
Hi, everybody. My name is Joy Webb, and I want to just take you back in a place where you think, hey, what is a philanthropist? What do you imagine when you think about a philanthropist? In America, and especially for BIPOC communities, a lot of times the narrative is a philanthropist is a rich white man. And that's not the case. We know that philanthropy is based on the word phila, which is the love for humankind. And if you have a love for humankind, then you can be a philanthropist. New 3Rs has been intentional as we talk about responsive philanthropy, in making sure that these students know what that is and how they can showcase and share and give their time, talent, and treasure to the world, showing their compassion. So they decided to start a giving circle. And a giving circle is a group of people that are intentional, like-minded, strategic in the way that they give their time, talent, and treasure and their collective resources to make the world a better place, to be the change they want to see. And so I have had the honor and the privilege to talk to the students after they have learned the history and been exposed to the history from Mr. Gore. And they have they understand the theories and the statements that are happening from a mental health and wellness perspective from other leaders in our group. We've come together and we talk about shared values. We talk about the truth. We talk about what they've learned and how they want to change the world, and how we can work with other Black-led nonprofits and organizations to do that, because we know that the organizations that are out here that are doing the work, they're doing the hard work, and they're also doing the heart work. And that is work that we can stand behind. The students want to stand behind it. They want to be engaged. They want to talk about how they can make the world a better place and how they can use their influence, which is their time, talent, and treasure, because it's bigger than just giving the dollars. It's about, pushing the word out, amplifying the voices, being the change. And so we've been working together. We've been learning together. We've been growing together. And I'm excited about how they will do that on a global value, because they'll be able to share that with people that are in the United States and globally that are Black-led organizations changing the world, because we know that when we help those organizations and that change, that systemic change is done, that will help everybody, because the underserved and undervalued that we oftentimes see in Black communities, they're actually doing the hardest work. They're putting in the most effort, and they actually are making the changes that need to be made. So when we when we see what's happening, when we learn what's happening, we use those things that we have learned in the new 3R, the resources, the curriculum, all of the things that the students are learning, they now get to put that into action. And they get to show how their love, their compassion, all of their shared values, they get to see how that aligns with some of the work that is being done in the world, and put it out there and work with these organizations. So I'm excited to be on this journey with the students. We are all going to be better for it. So that's what I do. And that's how I contribute to this work. Thank you. Any questions on that?
Yeah, Dr. Ansari, we'll leave it up to you. We did have a hand from Arun in India. So if you would want to entertain that question. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Joy, and thank you, Dr. Demetria, and thank you also Dr. Statia. So I just want to thank you, and I relate to a lot of what you said. I just have one question, and that is, how do you teach young people and adults to transcend these biases that are so deep-rooted? Is there some process you follow to do that?
So the curriculum is one. Danny has 10,000 Black history artifacts, and you can't argue an artifact, okay? It's not a story that you're reading from a journalist. So that's the most important thing. The second thing is that we teach that racism is systemic, all right? We see racism, and we help the children understand that racism is systemic. We see it in housing. We see it in environmental inequities. We do the whole list of 10 areas where racism shows up. And we talk about it. And it's aha moments for the students. It's aha moments for either the uncle or the grandmother who's on the phone. And then we take that, and the children begin, in the mindfulness work that we do, we have conversations about this. And so when we say through the art of social justice storytelling, we build relationships and a sense of responsibility, though art, it starts with an A, you hear the R. So for us, we do it through poetry. We do it through songs. We let the children listen to the drums, the harmony of all types of music that is communicating the type of world we need to have and a type of world we don't have.
Right.
And it takes time to get it. We are a year-long program. And what we do is we have, for lack of a better term, I will call it the Foundation for Community Building. The students and their families, they meet 8 times for the first month. That's Saturday and Sunday. We have to build these relationships. We have to build community. We have to we have to not let you run away when you hear a story. You're gonna come back next week.
Got it.
After that, we meet once a month. So we build community for a year. And then after that, the children become responsive philanthropists because they have either painted something from their heart and soul that shows what they feel about racism, or they did a ballet or a tap or jazz about how they feel.
Yeah.
And once they've been with us for a year, they understand that race does matter all around the world. And excuse my mouth, doggone it, I ain't taking it no more. And and they want to address racism through their philanthropy. The other thing that they do is they call members of Congress. They call their local politician in wherever they live, and they ask them a question from their hearts about what they feel about inequities and what did you do as a child. So so that's how we create that community and build up a generation. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does. It does beautifully, Starita. Thank you so much. Beautiful. It's a very holistic approach to the problem, using art and using conversation and community. So hearty compliments for this wonderful work. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Oh, thank you so much. Jacqueline is able to speak now unless there's more questions. Okay, Jacqueline.
Thank you. Merida, if you can start the PowerPoint, please. Merida, start the PowerPoint.
She's going to.
Hello, I am Jacqueline Toppin, Director of Social Impact and Evaluation for the New 3Rs. The New 3Rs conducted a behavioral and interest survey supporting Black history, civics, and compassion. The survey was conducted from December 2020 to January 2021 on Facebook. 55% of parents stated that children have lifetime friends of different races and faiths who discuss racism. We determined statistically significant cooperative effort exists between participant families of the New 3Rs and the New 3Rs team. More than half of respondents agreed that the New 3Rs work to accelerate compassion in society. We believe that responsive philanthropy and the Charter for Compassion have a positive impact and are confident about the extent of that impact with the New 3Rs and the Charter for Compassion EdNet Forum partnership. I will ask 3 key questions as we forge a strong continued commitment within the education sector and beyond to addressing compassion, social justice, and racial justice issues. 1, what would the anti-racist agenda look like for policy and practice in education and international development society? 2, how do we equity architects working in education get things on track collectively when societies at home and abroad are at different crossroads in life? And 3, which of your education partners would be interested in subscription to the New 3Rs newsletter? The next 6 slides are a snapshot of Flint, Michigan, South Bronx, and Yemen's social, economic, and political structure. Case study, Flint, Michigan. Policy failure and the ineptitude of local, state, and federal representatives contributed to the Flint, Michigan water crisis. Look from left to right as the water contaminants increase beyond what is considered a safe water level from the Buckfire Law 2016 presentation. The 13,000 parts per billion water contaminants in the Flint water produce a foul odor and yellow color that result in irreversible neurotoxin, Legionnaire's outbreak, and deaths. Case study, South Bronx. Pix 11 News reported in 2020 on the persistent high asthma rates in the South Bronx. New York City Department of Education statistics show child asthma emergency room visits in Hunts Point are nearly twice what they are citywide. Why? Approximately a dozen transfer station facilities are in the neighborhood. Case study, Flint, Michigan, and South Bronx statistic population. These communities are predominant people of color, as recorded from the U.S. 2020 Census and Community Health Profiles 2018, New York City Health. Over 50% of Flint, Michigan's population is Black, and over 70% of the South Bronx population is Latino. Case study, Yemen's lives highlight the ongoing challenge and solution to building a more compassionate society. Challenge. It is said the anti-Black racism began in the 6th century with Ethiopian soldiers' failed attempt to conquer the region we now know as Yemen. The Yemeni Arabs of African descent are not welcome to participate in the social, economic, and political structure of the state. They reside in communities deemed as slum areas, and many have been relegated to cleaning streets. The Yemeni Arabs' children of African descent have been discouraged from completing their education, and many have dropped out of school. The Imamate state rule ended in 1962, and it was reported that the caste system of exploitation also came to an end. Our social statistics of the legacy of the class system and humanitarian crisis from the leadership-imposed Yemeni civil war 8 years on, that is contrary to that statement in upcoming slides. Solution. Author Muhammad al-Masri in his 2021 article states, in the South, the former socialist regime which ruled South Yemen from 1990 tried in vain to put an end to it. He further writes about the good work of the Arab Reform Initiative, founded in 2005. It is an independent Arab think tank working with stakeholders to build coalitions for positive change. Charter for Compassion Yemen joined the United Religions Initiative Network in 2018. They became a cooperation circle. Their aim is to spread a culture of mercy, peace, and cooperation among diverse communities in Yemen. Case study, Yemen statistics, legacy of the caste system. The population count for Arabs of African descent in 2004 is listed twice in the International Delete Solidarity Network Briefing Note 2014. We can ask ourselves why the discrepancy from thousands to millions. The government of Yemen has expressed they do not have different racial groups. However, there are no laws to protect Yemeni Arabs of African descent from persecution. Yemeni Arabs of African descent inclusion in the 2004 and 2022 U.S. Census Bureau International Database is an uncertainty in the data. Case study, Yemen statistics, Yemeni Civil War. Atrocities of the Civil War have created a population in need. The overview statistics is from the Yemen Country Office Humanitarian Situation Report, March 2022. Millions of individuals in racial groups and ethnic groups are in need at home and abroad. We thank you for this collaborative effort to promote understanding between people globally. The new 3Rs and Charter for Compassion EdNet Forum partnership will save lives with the truth about Black history, civics, and compassion. Dan Gore will present a story on Ethiopia.
Okay, I'm also going to play a video, share a video with you.
Thank you.
I need to get out of here. Sorry. Because it's full screen. Oh.
Hi, I'm Darren Anthony. And we joined the inaugural class of the new 3Rs in the summer of 2020.
The volume is very low.
You may need to optimize your volume, or Marita, I don't know if you can click on
That's the
optimize.
highest it can go. That's allowed.
But if you go into your three dots, you'll see where it says optimize.
Okay, just 1 second. I'll pause it meantime. Okay, let's see if that works better. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Darren Anthony.
I'm Jasper Anthony.
I'm Colleen Anthony.
And we joined the inaugural class of the new 3Rs in the summer of 2020.
As a family in Los Angeles, we were looking for an opportunity to learn more about Black history and racial justice, and found this program is really unique in that it is online and with people from all over the country, and it teaches a broad range from ancient history to modern times, contributions of Black people, and then civic action, how to engage in civic action. So it's a really active program as opposed to just learning, and so we found that to be really valuable, and it's given us the opportunity to springboard a lot of conversations as a family off of the things that we've learned about through this program.
One of my favorite parts of the new 3Rs is it's got to be the community. The teachers, my classmates in it, just everyone is so delightful. In our meetings, they're just, I wait and wait till every single one of them. I'm so excited for each one, and it's mostly because the class is so diverse. There's, someone of almost every race in there from all around the country, and I love it. And I also love the history because I love history, and it's just given me a more robust view of the history of the world, and I've been able to share this at school with my teachers, friends, and classmates, and I feel like it has changed my life in a very positive way that I just wish more people had.
So we highly recommend the new 3Rs to anybody who wants to learn more about social justice and Black history.
And to communicate as a family on these issues.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I'm sorry, somebody said black boxes were in the middle. Those were your faces. And the chat, what was going on.
So that's who we are. Danny Gore is going to wrap with this session with a Black history story. But hopefully you understand why we are an online program. That's the only way we can bring people together from around the world who are concerned about racial injustices and inequities. And we look forward to working together in terms of creating a generation of youth responsive philanthropists who are investing in Black lives around the world and teaching Black history. I mean, Danny has 10,000 Black history artifacts, so he can talk about Black history around the world. So with that, Danny, I pass it to you.
Okay, for this story, I have to mention Dr. Howard Leifman because he asked me a question. What's going on with the Ethiopians in Israel? And I said, and that took me back to a time when I had watched a video a few years ago where a rabbi was talking to his congregation, and he said that he found out that there were some Africans who claimed to be Jews. And he said that is probably not possible because we've never been over there to teach them anything, but they were practicing some of the same practices that the Jews practiced, although no one ever told them this. This was embedded in their culture. And So he did some further research, or he learned somewhere or another that someone had felt the same way he did. So they did some DNA testing and they found out that they had come from, they had the same ancestor with the right chromosome. So I'm going to talk about the Ethiopians in Israel. Israelis were very excited and proud to bring Ethiopian Jews to Israel and felt a particular affinity for their commitment to Judaism, in exile and a desire to return to Zion. Nevertheless, Ethiopians have sometimes been victims of discrimination. Only 25% of Israelis said that they would live next to an Ethiopian, and the government settled many of them in towns on Israel's periphery. In 2012, residents of an apartment complex refused to rent or sell to Ethiopians, which provoked a protest against housing discrimination. In 2015, protests erupted when a video surfaced showing two policemen beating an Ethiopian soldier while he was in uniform, highlighting what members of the community say is a pattern of police brutality. A subsequent demonstration in Tel Aviv turned violent and 60 people were injured. After the incident, the government formed a commission to stamp out racism, which reported Ethiopians were discriminated against in education, medical treatment, employment, and army enlistment. Ethiopians were also victims of over-policing, aggressive tactics in response to minor violations, and were indicted and jailed at a far higher rate than other Israelis. Following the publication of the report, the situation had improved with a drop in over-policing and significant improvement in police interaction with Ethiopian youth. But activists also complained that students of Ethiopian descent, even if born in Israel, fall under the jurisdiction of the Ministry of Absorption rather than the Ministry of Education. They say that their history is not being taught with the same diligence as other immigrant groups. In February 2018, the Israeli government ended a 30-year controversy over the status of traditional Ethiopian leaders, known as Qasim, by recognizing their authority to perform official religious functions and the legitimacy of their halachic rulings. In June 2019, an Ethiopian soldier reported that his commander had called him a stinking Kushi, a Hebrew racial slur. The commander was relieved of duty. So to keep this brief, I'm going to just point out a few milestones. And Israel holds an annual memorial service at the National Cemetery on Mount Herzl in Jerusalem to remember the estimated 4,000 Ethiopian Jews who died trying to reach Israel. In 1999, Ethiopian youth joined the Israeli Scouts, and the first Ethiopian became a doctor. In 2012, Israel appointed its first Ethiopian Jewish ambassador. Also in 2012, Penina Tamo Shata became the first Ethiopian-born woman to serve in the Knesset. In 2013, an Ethiopian Israeli won the Miss Israel pageant. In 2016, Lieutenant Colonel Avi Yitzhak became the first Ethiopian Israeli to graduate from IDF's Brigade Commander course. He was also the first Ethiopian Israeli to ever serve as a combat doctor and is a graduate of the Ben Gurion University's medical program. Yitzhak immigrated to Israel at age 19 in 1991. And prior to entering the brigade command course, he led the combat medical branch of the IDF Medical Corps. In another first, Yitzhak became the first Ethiopian Israeli to attain the rank of colonel in the IDF in November 2016. So I've also learned that, you know, when people tell their stories, we have to start listening. I'm Danny Gore, and again, this has been a brief history lesson. And I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned something that you hadn't known before. Are there any questions?
I think we have a hand from Rebecca. No? Okay. I think it was a clap. Okay. All right. Great. Great. Well, we do have, Dr. Ansari, if that was a wrap, we do have time for some more questions. And I definitely have a burning question, but I don't want to usurp anyone else who might have a question right now before we move on. And we want to leave a little bit of time for Marilyn to tell us what's up next with the EdNet forum. So any questions? Marilyn.
Yeah, it's not so much a question as an observation, and then maybe moving forward with a little bit of discussion. You know, I'm so reminded, Danny, of the importance of missing pages of history. And I'm glad for Rebecca's clap. And, you know, it's really important that we discover these pages so that Moses married an Ethiopian woman, Sephora, and that's how it all started in this relationship between Israel and Ethiopia. And, you know, if we look at all of our cultural history, all of our political history, we're slapped with truth and with connection all the time. And that's what we're missing. It's not only the missing pages of history, it's the missing pages of who we are. And so Starita and Joy, Jacqueline, we've been talking about what's the next steps of collaboration between the Charter for Compassion and the new 3Rs. And we are hoping that we will start this magical journey of reclaiming history, reclaiming culture, and beginning the process of truly working for a transitional change in all of our lives. So we just want to put that forth. And Starita, I'd like to maybe invite you to say a little bit about, you know, people already know that this is going to be a long-term course, a weekend course once a month. And I'll just kind of ask you to share a little bit about your thinking with this as well. And we have a couple of people from the from our education sector here, and so I hope that they'll chime in as well.
Well, it's definitely is going to be a collaboration because we have shared core values. There's something that the new 3Rs can learn from Charter for Compassion and something that a Charter for Compassion can learn from the new 3Rs. If we, and let me say what I know from my expertise in designing programs. Because both of us are so committed into this work, we blend our hearts and our minds. It will do two things. First, it will be a powerful collaboration. And secondly, it will achieve both of our missions. So in doing this work, there are relationships that the charter has, there's work that the charter has. And on our end, we need to look at that and see how to put it in that cake we're making, all right? I'm not going to, in my expertise of designing programs, sometimes I have to come to the table with the research that I've done and then give it to the organization. That's not the case here. You already know we have a problem. You already have a commitment to justice. So let's look at what we can do based upon our strengths, where we can tweak the current curriculum that the new 3Rs has, and have the global impact that both of us want to have. That is what I know we should do. The other part is, it's not about what I know we should do, but when I think about the children, my heart tells me we don't have a choice. We really don't have a choice but to look at the current curriculum that we both have and take the best and make it better for our babies, no matter where they live, no matter how they pray, no matter what their gender preference is. Both of us, listen, both of us have compassion in our mission statement, okay? So we're supposed to be doing this work together.
Yeah.
Just think about it.
You're touching on my burning question, but I think Arun has a question or comment to make. But I definitely want to ask this burning question that I have before we leave. Arun, please.
Sure. Thank you, Charles, and thank you, Dr. Starita. So I was just wanting to say that, the Foundation for Peace and Compassionate Leadership and the Charter for Compassion have started a movement, another movement that has a lot of resonance with yours, which is called Youth Collaborating for Compassion. And very simply, the YCC program is children from one part of the world talking to children from another part of the world through Zoom conferences, like between India and Pakistan, between India and Indonesia, between Palestine and Israel, and so on. And the initial responses we have found is that when you hear the stories of other people, you cannot fear them. A lot of the fear comes because they don't know about them. But when children, especially the youth, start talking to each other, and I put it in the chat box, we do not fear people whose stories we know. And just getting people in Sweden to talk to people in, Netherlands to talk to India, and the children, we are finding a phenomenal shift in the understanding that, my God, we are all the same. Deep down, there's a shared humanity. So, for example, rural Uganda, schools in rural Uganda will speak to schools in rural India and say, my God, it's the same kind of issues. So I will be sharing more about this program, Dr. Starita and friends, on the 15th of September in the same program, exactly the same thing, the EdNet forum. But I just wanted to let you know that I deeply appreciate what you're doing, and pretty much YCC is like reinforcing the same thing about people to get to know each other, and let the youth manage it. Let the youth and art from the heart, poetry, let's do haiku jamming, let's have fun, really giving the youth space to design things and let that emerge. And on the 15th of September, I'll give you more information on this. But right now, just wanted to say a big thank you to you, Dan, and to Joy, and everyone who spoke, Dr. Howard. This is so heartening, because connection, conversation, and co-creation is really the way to transcend these barriers and these biases. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That really warmed my heart and filled my soul.
I saw a big smile on Sinead's face when you said youth, bringing the youth in, because they ultimately have the answer as we go forward in our history. My burning question is, the charter is definitely committed to compassion education training from cradle to grave. And the program, 3R program, is so broad and so deep, and using the technology of online connection, so beautiful. We didn't have this several years back, but now we do. And Dr. Ansari, you all have taken this and really expanded and been able to connect people from all over the world and intergenerationally, which I'm so impressed with, and it resonates so much with what the Charter for Compassion does and believes in. And this mission of compassion education training from cradle to the grave, we've engaged with a number of programs along the way, and certainly want to engage with 3Rs. But one of the areas that there's plenty of programs out there, but connecting them in a way that is impactful globally is still in question. And so my question is really directed towards the work of Dr. Thomas and Dr. Leifman in terms of educating parents. And I guess the question I have is, are you engaging with, let's say, pregnant parents, the parents of infants and toddlers? Because you said it, Dr. Ansari, by age 3, those biases and prejudices are there. And then it takes all the kind of work we do after that in the pre-K level and the K through 12 and on up to begin to address something that, if we had addressed it when the babies are born and the toddlers are walking around, and with this value of compassion, it's long, that is definitely long term. So what are your thoughts about the focus on parents, infants, toddlers?
So that's a very good question. And I'll be very clear and transparent with you. We originally launched as a pre-K to 5th grade program because we're going to animate Black history. But those who hold the purse panicked. They didn't want their young darlings knowing Black history. They didn't want them learning the contributions that Black people have given the world. So we started with the Giving Circle piece first. So the Giving Circle is for 6th to 10th grade, in hopes that once people see what we do with the 6th to 10th graders, they will realize it's nothing to be scared about teaching a child how to be humane to everyone.
Right.
And I think, but there's no study out there about that, is that, I don't know how to say this, but I'm just going to say it. In some ways, COVID was a blessing, because COVID-19 forced people to stay still around the world to see what happened. And what happened is that Black people in Paris says, oh, we got George Floyd's here. Black people in Poland, we got George Floyd's here. And people started demonstrating around the world about racism and wanting justice. So I think now we are in the position to go back to Plan A, which is animating Black history, and get it, the languages is Spanish, French, and Arabic. So that's how we started, but people were too afraid.
Well, I think there are a lot of pre-K programs out there, ages 3 to 6, and then of course you've got your kindergarten. But I guess I'm really looking at the pregnant moms dads, and how do we work with them, and let them hear the stories and let them be able to train and enculturate compassion in their toddlers, even before they get to the pre-K level. And that's a big order. It's a big order. Thank you
But
so much.
I understand, and I agree with you.
Thank you. Questions, other questions?
We're just about 2 minutes before the end, Charlie. And
Okay.
so
All right.
I want, I want to make certain to invite people to, if you're interested, let us know if you want to be a part of the education sector, because you know, here in that sector, what we try and do is look at what's happening. And by the way, the folks who are here from that sector, we are going to be taking over the EdNet and have an opportunity to sit in Charlie's seat as host for the upcoming programs. Our next program in just 2 weeks, Thursday morning, again at 7:30 Pacific time, will be with Lisa Miller. And Lisa's at Columbia University and has written a number of books about awakening the brain of children and spirituality in childhood. And I just am excited because, you know, Charlie just put a little bug in my ear that I think I'd like to spend some time with Starita, just going through and looking at a program called Systematic Training for Effective Parenting, something that has been around for quite some time. I believe in strongly. It has no, I mean, it's totally in the realm of Howard's world, in dealing with psychology with parents. Doesn't have the kind of component of the 3 R's, but maybe we can involve the son of the creator of that program, Don Dinkmeyer Jr. So look for that. We're going to contact him and see if we can get him on the EdNet forum. And maybe Starita and others from among us might want to have a conversation eventually with him. Thank you all for coming. Charlie, I'll let you finish up and say.
Yes, Starita, just amazing work since 2017, and you all are doing what you're doing today. It's just fantastic and an example for everyone. Thank you so much.
So we would like to close out with a quick Black History story, can we?
Sure.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, Danny, take us home.
Okay. Okay, this is going to be about Guinea land, Niger, and Nigeria, also known as the Grain Coast, the Gold Coast, and the Slave Coast. Niger's story is never told within the world slave trade story. It's somehow missing from the experience. And as a result, we're led to believe that there's a harmless or non-existent story. In fact, when the British tell the story, they often fast forward to William Wilberforce and the grace-saving effort to save them from their barbaric past. They never talk about how it was started by Europe, especially by Britain, the English slavers, the merchants, and the profiteers. There were 4,803,000 slaves exported between 1501 and 1867 from Nigeria's Bights of Benin and Biafra alone. 2.5% of Africa's population of less than 90 million in the year 1800, which is atrocious. Where are the connections to the Atlantic slave trade today? In the United States, 80% of the slaves to arrive in America was from Africa. Nigeria, through the Gulf of Guinea, the Bights of Benin and Biafra contributed 23% of that number. Effectively, 4 million slaves were shipped between the ports of Wida, Lagos, and the Calabar regions of the east coast of the United States and Canada, making Niger the largest of the slave trading destinations and probably the corresponding origin of the Black population today. On the island of Jamaica, there is an area known as Calabar. In 1843, the Calabar Theology College was sited in the village of Calabar, near Rio Bueno, in the parish of Trelawney in Jamaica. It is called Calabar High School, a prestigious school today. It has produced at least 5 Rhodes Scholars. The slave port of Old Calabar is the source of where many of the slaves to Jamaica were captured and shipped. The Igbo, the Iboyo, and the Oyo account for 40% of the slaves shipped to Jamaica alone in the 1700s. This passage has been repeated all over the West Indies. Salvador City in Bahia, Brazil, is the most important city in the rise of Rio de Janeiro. It remains economically important and second most visited tourist destination in Brazil. The vast majority of the Blacks descended from slaves whose roots are in the Luba or Nogo religion. Actually, the Yoruba-speaking people of present-day Nigeria. No surprise that in Cuba, where approximately 10% of the population is Black, and overwhelmingly descended from Oyo people in West Africa. In today's Nigeria, and they were brought in the late 1700s as slaves. The word diaspora means the dispersal of human beings. The greatest human dispersal in the human of mankind has been the transatlantic slave trade, which has dispersed Black Africans to every corner of the world. Diaspora to other parts of the world has meant a permanent connection to their homeland, whether it's Italians to Italy, Indians to India, Lebanese to Lebanon, and Jews to Israel. It has meant a permanent connection. But the trauma of Africa's experience in this sort of diaspora, that same slave trade is the absence of that homeland permanent ties. You have Black Africans feeling assimilated to different parts of the country, different parts of the world. And in a way, they no longer look at Africa as a homeland. On a note, the last slave ship to enter the United States was the Clotilda, carrying Yoruba-speaking cargo from modern-day Nigeria, including Cujo Lewis, Kuele Kosola, and 100 others from the port between Badagry and Wida to Alabama in 1860. Again, this has been Danny Gore, and hopefully you've learned something that you didn't know before. And appreciate you inviting me.
Thank you, Dr. Starita and team. Most excellent work. Look forward to more connection and collaboration between the charter and 3Rs. So thank you. You all have a wonderful day, and we'll see you at the next forum, hopefully. So bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you all. Bye.
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 Thank
Have
you
a
very
nice
much.
day.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Nice morning. Thank you, Starita.